And she was waiting. She was on time waiting in the wrong studio.
I really was. Like, we finished
So,
up the conversation, and then I was waiting, and I kept looking up, and I'm like, I'm just waiting. I was trying to be all patient and wait, but
and we were like, I wonder where she is. I was like thinking, oh, maybe she's just had a super crazy day like I have. But no, we're good.
I'm
We're
making
good. We're
sure.
here now. We're all good. No problems. And hopefully people can hear and see us.
Yeah, hopefully. So, I had a little bit of a crazy day, but not too much. It's 4th of July weekend, so we end up with a lot of. I'm in a really really good location for boarding because we can't hear the fireworks where we are. So the
Oh, that's
animals,
great.
yeah. So the animals are actually pretty. I used to my 2 dogs I have now don't have a problem, but my old dog had a really really bad problem with fireworks. So I actually would board her down there on 4th of July because it's so
Yeah.
much quieter down there. So
Oh, that's good. Yeah, we were really busy today with people trying to get out of town because it's like a war zone in San Francisco. And
really,
it's been like that for weeks, but it gets like ridiculous. It really is. You can't even drive because there's like so many fireworks getting shot out at your car and stuff. Like you can't, it's really insane. And the noise level is off the charts. Fortunately, none of my animals care, which is great.
yeah,
But Bronco gets a little nervous.
yeah. It
He's
can
the one
it.
who gets nervous more than of anyone else. He's like hopping around, like, because it does seem like you're worried your house might burn down. I mean, just things, it's just so crazy.
Yeah,
You know, it's so crazy. So if you have any kind of nervous animal, you pretty much have to leave the city. It's just too much.
I
So
bet.
most people are leaving, they're getting out of town. So it's just been insane. And then we're open all weekend and we're open Monday and everything, but not many. I think it'll be pretty quiet actually on the
Yeah,
actual weekend, but yeah.
probably.
And then we're
I
really busy training a whole, new people, and
oh, training's always fun.
it's hard.
It is
It's
hard. It
hard,
is really
yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
It is hard. So long as people will stay patient, right? Like, if the customers will stay patient, we can get through it. But it is hard when you're training somebody, and then people can get impatient with on both sides, and it makes it difficult. But I always
Yeah.
tell my staff, just take a deep breath. You'll get through it. But it's not easy. It's not easy. Um, I have a vet friend of mine who her own dogs get very, very, very anxious. Well, they used to. They've all since passed, but she used to get in her car and just drive
Drive,
and
yeah.
just drive and drive
One of
around.
my last customers who was just here, he was saying that's what he did last year, and he just drove pretty much all night. He just had to keep
Yeah,
driving because it goes on till about 2 or 3 in the morning here.
I
So
know.
he just and then I've heard that there's a tip that if you go near the airport and rent a hotel, it's awesome because apparently they're not allowed to have fireworks near the airport. So, and
Oh,
then of
wow.
course
Yeah,
they're
that would
like
be smart.
modern. Yeah, so renting a hotel room for the night probably is a great idea, I would imagine.
Yeah, if you can rent a hotel that has, that allows dogs. I don't think that would work for my area because John Wayne is right next to Costa Mesa,
Hmm.
which has the highest rate of. I've never seen it. It's horrifying. It's horrifying. I don't even think they're going off in Costa Mesa, but the airport is right on the border. So
Huh, interesting.
it's, oh
Yeah.
my gosh, I wouldn't even want to be on a plane for fear that your plane would get. I'm sorry, I'm looking at my phone because somebody is trying to get on, and I'm trying to help him. So he wants me to. Lori's in the background. Hey, Lori, I don't know if you can see on our Facebook page, but Kyle Moto is trying to get on. He just got a new puppy, so he's trying to
Aw.
get on, and he's having trouble finding it. So hopefully we can get him there. I'm
Yeah, we
just,
have a lot of new people, their first dog, first puppies.
yeah,
So it's hard though to remember all of the things that they don't know,
I know,
you
I know.
know?
I
And I
love,
without overwhelming them, I'm so bad at overwhelming people on accident. Like I try not to, but there's
I
so much
know
they need to know, and even just the basic stuff is a lot. And
so much.
I don't want them to. I mean, there's so many decisions to be made those first few days and even that first year. And if they don't have a good support system with their professionals that are part of their team, and they don't even maybe realize that, they just think a vet's a vet and whatever vet's next to them. That is so not true. And they can get into a lot of trouble. So they can really make or break that animal's entire life based on what happens within those first few weeks at home,
Yep.
or months at least, like making those vaccine decisions and all of the flea and tick and all of the different decisions that are made, and then all the socializing. They have the window that's closing at 12 weeks, and they have, I mean, everything. There's so much coming in, and they just have no clue. They have no idea about all this stuff. And
No,
so
I can.
I'm like, before we even talk about the food, first let's get you a good vet. Let's get you a good behaviorist. I need you to go watch the puppy culture videos. Like, they're like, so, but it's so urgent. It really is. I mean, they really can't delay
Yeah.
making, I mean, they can delay. Usually they have to go see a puppy, a vet for if they've got it from a breeder, from a rescue, they usually have to go to a vet within the first few days just to do a health assessment. That's typical. Like, it's kind of required, not by law, but by it's commonplace to make sure that you have a healthy puppy when that you get it from whoever you got it from. So that will assure that. But the problem is that vet visit cannot be just a health assessment. They end up loading them up with all kinds of things that can hurt them. So I want to make sure that they go see a good vet that first visit. Otherwise, especially if it comes from like a great breeder that's doing everything right, and then they go see someone and they just unknowingly and unwittingly, they're the that whoever that is just doesn't honor all the work that the breeder put into a naturally reared puppy or something like that. So anyway, it's a
No,
whole topic.
it is a whole topic, but
Yeah.
it's totally true that it can be so overwhelming. And I'm like you, there is an urgency to it. There's a sense of urgency because if you make that one little, like, for example, I think that the beginning of setting a pet up for failure starts from the very first day you get him home and he has diarrhea.
I always tell
And
them they're gonna have diarrhea because they're just coming from a different place. No matter what you're
yeah,
doing, get ready
yeah.
for diarrhea and don't freak out. And
But they do. They freak out, then they go to the wrong vet, and the vet gives them metronidazole, and that's
and then we're ruined
that's
for
it.
life. We can't
And then
fix
that's it.
that. Oh,
And then
so
it's
sad.
so hard to get back. And that's why when
Takes
Casey and I are
years.
talking, we sound like, "Oh my god, don't mess up,"
I
because we
know.
know.
We just
I
see the results of that
I
every
know.
single day. And it's
It's
so much easier to avoid that than, if we can prevent them from going down that path, those little things that happen. Or, someone came in today. Oh, Carrie, makes me want to cry. The dog was given, he said, I don't remember. It was astonishing to me. I think 9 vaccines in one day, and it went in because it wasn't feeling well.
oh god, I swear. If I just keep hearing these, it's
And that
driving me
was at a
crazy.
holistic vet.
Yeah, those are we call those holistic.
Folistic,
Those are the
absolutely
those are the
folistic.
holistic, and
There's
that's a
nothing
whole
holistic
topic.
about that. Totally.
They're worse to me than a traditional veterinarian who's upfront,
Yeah.
because and I used to send my clients to a people think it's crazy, but I would send them to this veterinarian. He's since
A
retired.
totally traditional vet,
Totally traditional
allopathic,
vet.
because they have wisdom and experience and expertise, and they are, if someone's conservative and allopathic, and they make good decisions, that is so much healthier and better than someone who's saying that they're holistic and they go in trusting this is someone who's going to make holistic minded decisions, and
Exactly.
someone who's going to look, and then they just trust completely. They don't have to go in with their guard up, which they might do if they were going to an allopathic vet. I mean,
Exactly.
I don't know, everyone's different, but
Right.
and then they
No, that's
come out
exactly
just
it.
totally shocked that the vet did all these harmful treatments
Yeah, no,
to
that's
hurt the
exactly
animal.
why I would send them to this particular vet, and I would tell them, "Listen, he's a traditional conventional veterinarian.
Just
If
fine.
so
Yeah.
you go there and you get his opinion and his everything, and then you do your own research and figure out which way
Yes.
you want to go." But when I was sending them to these holistic veterinarians, they go in
It's
without their guard
heartbreaking.
and they're like, "Oh, Carrie sent me here. She's holistic." And then they come back to me and they go, "Well, I got the Bordetella vaccine because you said she was holistic." And I'm like, "Oh my gosh, no, next."
It's
So
so heartbreaking.
I just want to welcome Brian because Brian's going to be our number one fan. I think
Aw.
he's
Hi,
I had
Brian.
he's the one I had on the podcast. He's just so interested in this, and I love that. I love people that are interested. But he says, "Hi, ladies. Glad to see I wasn't the only one late. Thanks for calling us out. Thanks, Brian."
Hi,
And
Brian.
then
Nice to see you
I should
again.
probably share this here. So he said, Carrie, I loved your preemptive post about post-fourth diarrhea. And he said he shared it with his fosters. So I shared a, a, I, a way to possibly help prevent diarrhea that comes on from all of the nerves of 4th of July. So obviously you want to really prevent your dog from having those that anxiety and that fear and all of that. And most people focus on that. But my issue, going back to metronidazole, is that if you've tried everything and whatever it is, but your dog ended up being nervous that night, there's a good chance he'll have diarrhea the next day.
Mm-hmm.
If he has diarrhea the next day, I can guarantee you,
It's not
back
the
when I
end of
was
the world.
well, he'll
One.
have diarrhea the 5th. I'm telling
One.
you, vets are so busy on the 5th and the 6th of July because all these animals end up with diarrhea. So they rush them to the vet.
It's
And
just
then the vet
diarrhea.
gives them the metronidazole and all of these other drugs to stop the diarrhea. And so I said that, and I've done this, is if you are a person who fasts your dog, then this is the best time to do it. And if you're a person who's thinking of fasting your dog and
Now's
you're
the
wondering,
time.
now is the time, let's do it on the 4th of July, because then on the 5th of July, there's a real good chance you won't find yourself at the vet with a dog with diarrhea. And
Yeah.
so I just kind of put that out there and said, listen, if you fast your dog, and let's do it. And so I set up where what you would do is feed them. If you feed twice a day, however you feed, but if you do feed twice a day, feed them on the 3rd in the morning, both foods. So the
Okay.
dinner and the breakfast, give it to them for breakfast. And so they're getting that same amount, but it won't be so late in the day on the 3rd, because the fireworks start sometimes very early. Sometimes they go on the 3rd. So we want to really stop feeding
Or if you're
after
in San
breakfast.
Francisco, they've been going all week.
Oh God.
Yeah.
See, that's the thing. Like you
Last
can
night I was
obviously,
walking in the park on the way home with Groovy. Just we stopped there on our way, to do a potty before we go in, and I think it was about 10 o'clock or something. And man, the fireworks were so extreme. It went on and on. It was really loud, and she was cool, but I was kind of like a little nervous because it was really a lot. It was
yeah.
very intense, and it went on for a long time. It was like someone having their. That's the thing. Aren't they expensive? How do people afford that?
I
I
don't
don't
know.
understand
I'm
how.
always amazed at what people can afford when they really want it,
That's
right?
crazy.
I
Yeah,
mean, I've
I
had
guess.
girls that uh, you know, many years ago, that would come to work and oh my gosh, I'm so broke, I have no money, and then the next day they come in with like extensions in their hair, and I'm like, wow, those are expensive.
They are
Like,
expensive. Yeah.
there's no way. Yeah, people will pay for, they find the way to get the money. I don't know. And some of those same people won't feed their dogs well, so I get really frustrated. I'm like, you're out there driving this fancy car and your dog's eating kibble. It breaks my heart. So
But you were gonna. I interrupted you. You were gonna talk about on the third feeding early in the
so
day, and
yeah, so
then
I how I would do the fast. If you've done fasting before, then you don't need my guidance. But if this is your first time and you really want to kind of maybe make sure your pet doesn't have a bunch of diarrhea, you feed them on July 3rd in the morning. Their breakfast, you can combine their dinner with their breakfast if you're worried about them not having enough food. So you feed them in the morning on the 3rd. You don't feed them anything on the 4th.
mm-hmm.
They do not eat on the 4th. And
Mm-mm.
then you could feed them the morning of the 5th, so long as they're not still nervous. But
Yeah,
if
they
they're
probably
still
don't even
nervous,
need it. But
they
yeah,
probably don't.
no.
But most people are so afraid to fast their dogs that I'm
What are
trying
they
to,
afraid of? Do you
you
know?
know, yeah, I think it goes back to that mothering, nurturing, when you, like when my kids were little, if they wouldn't eat, I felt like I was a bad parent. And then when they ate, I was the good parent. And so there's some kind of psychological thing that goes on. I think even with our dogs, where people just have this, like they're a bad parent somehow if their pet doesn't eat. And that's just psychological. It's not, and there's a lot of people that think it's bad and it can cause problems. And
Like what? Like, have you had people tell you what they think it could happen to
well,
them?
just recently, I had some people with the deep chested dogs say that
Mm-hmm.
it could kill them because they could get bloat from
From
fasting.
fasting.
I know, very
There's zero
interesting.
evidence to support that.
I know. And interesting
And that
when
comes
you
from
look at,
someone who's had Great Danes and Irish Wolfhounds.
right, but it's interesting that someone would say that fasting for deep-chested dogs can cause bloat when the science that we do have suggests that it's from too much carbohydrate. So eating is
Well, and I mean, honestly, there's a strong genetic component.
sure,
Yeah.
sure, sure, sure. But
For
it doesn't
predisposition to it. Yeah.
really make sense when you think about it's
No,
just
it's
yeah.
usually after a meal. It's not after a fast.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, no, there's people that just say, there's no evidence that fasting is healthy and, you
But
know
with bloat, we could talk about bloat because I know
yeah,
that
let's
topic
do it.
super well. So because of that's an obsession of Great Dane people typically.
Yeah,
So there's some number. It used to be, I don't know if it's true anymore, but I mean, I've had Great Danes since 91, so I've had them for a long time. But it used to be like something like 80% of Great Danes, or maybe it was of the dogs that bloat, it was 80% were Great Danes or something like that. There's some
yeah,
80% number. And it's usually, well, and the bloat study, it used to be we used to feed them in the elevated feeders,
yep,
and that
yeah,
was like better for their backs and everything.
yeah,
One of the things, and I used to have one of those too, but it's kind of ridiculous because when you feed not a mushed up raw food, but you feed like pieces of food, they usually take
mhm,
it out of the bowl and put it on the floor and eat it anyway. And wolves are not like, and coyotes and any other dog, they don't have raised feeders. They're not eating off of a raised feeder. They're eating off the ground. So I don't use those anymore, of course. It's been many years since I have. And
yeah,
it's fine for them. And if they need to lay down and chew on a bone, they're going to just lay down if they're not comfortable standing up doing it. But usually they stand up. They're fine. They can make a decision what works for their body.
yeah,
But then so actually what they kind of came like their profile of the dog that was most at risk for bloating was of course the deep chested and the genetic predisposition, but then also it was usually males over the age of 9 that had a nervous temperament, and being fed out of a raised bowl was actually it would increase the risk factor for them to bloat. And then the one thing that we used to always do, and I don't I don't know, I kind of have fallen out of the habit of it, but I did it forever, was that I would and I probably still do this. Is that you also feed them, you wait 1 hour after exercise to feed them, before feeding them, and then after they eat, it's another 2 hours of rest before they run around. So you have like a 3-hour feeding window basically. And I used to get up at 4 in the morning, which I do anyway,
aw,
but I get up 4 in the
yeah,
morning with my puppy so that I would have time to walk her, then rest her, then feed her, then watch her, because I didn't feel comfortable leaving her after eating without being supervised, because that was the kind of the window when they would have the most at risk for bloating. So that's what
yeah,
we still do that. But I have to say, one of the things that I've changed. So one, I no longer do the raised feeders because one, it's not necessary. Two, it actually increases the risk for bloat,
yeah,
according to that one,
I read that
study
study.
at
I
least.
read
Yeah.
it. It was
Yeah.
interesting
Me too.
how different you get, right? Like, you need raised that was a theory, and
Yeah.
then the study comes out and
And
says,
it's complete
"That theory is
opposite.
completely wrong. It's the
Yeah.
complete opposite."
Yeah, it's
So,
interesting.
yeah.
And then I used to feed 2 meals a day because I was so worried about the volume of food. And I had one little Great Dane, this little 105-pound Great Dane. She needed about 4 pounds of food a day, which is a lot for
Wow.
her size.
Yeah.
And she could even go a little more. And she was always a skinny mini. She was like a hummingbird, burned through her food. And I was always worried about feeding her a 4-pound meal all at once. But then, so for those guys, I always fed 2 meals a day just because I was nervous about that. And they passed away in, I'm trying to think about it, when we're like 2010. And so it's been a long time since I've had
Yeah.
them, but I've had a wolfhound since then and multiple Great Danes since then. And the wolfhound really changed my perspective because I adopted him when he was 9, and from this woman who was like, she fed him the minute he came in from a big run. She fed him only once a day, these big meals. And it was like all this stuff that I was like, oh my gosh, he's going to bloat. I'm too scared. And she kept telling me, he's not going to bloat. He's not going to bloat. He's not going to bloat. And so I was like, okay. She keeps saying he's not going to bloat. So I still did the resting thing. I still just couldn't let go of that. It just makes
Yeah.
me nervous that they don't rest before and after their meals. But I did start, because he had all these serious appetite issues that were just super complicated appetite problems and skin problems that we cleared up with a prey model diet. That also changed my whole opinion about them needing some veggies. And he just went against all these things that I knew, and he taught me so much. And that there's some animals that actually do very poorly with any vegetable in the diet, and he was one of those, and I had never had one of those before, and so it changed my perspective on that. I learned a lot from him, but in a lot of ways, a lot of things, but the dietarily, those are the things I learned. But that he did best. He finally thrived. His weight finally normalized, his appetite finally normalized, his skin stuff finally normalized when I just went to whole prey once a day, big meals.
Yeah.
And it was like that totally was the magic combo for him, and that worked super well. And it was that's how it worked. He did great. And so now since then I feed twice a day or 3 times a day when they're little puppies. About 6 months of age they start to have less of an interest in their morning meal, and then I go to two. Whenever that happens, they naturally usually will kind of be less interested in the morning meal, and that's when I drop off the morning meal and I go to midday and evening. And then between the age of like 9 to 10 months and a year, they usually have more of an appetite in the evenings, and by a year I usually go to just one meal a day in the evenings or the late afternoons. And that's how I feed my adults. And I even feed my cats that way, which is super unheard of. A lot of people don't
Yeah.
do that, but I
But
do.
isn't
But it's been working great, and I for many, many, many years, and several all kinds of different dogs at this point. And I feel very comfortable making that recommendation for most people. And I think that works fine, and I'm not worried about bloat. So the one dog I had bloat was my most chill out, not anxious guy at all. He was over the age of 9. Oh, and they also, if they're neutered, I think that increases their risk too. So he was also neutered, and he was eating out of a raised bowl. And it was, but I had the rest period between and after the meal. But he also was bloating, and I knew he was bloating, and I was freaking out, and I brought him to the vet, and they were like, "Why do you think he's bloating? He doesn't seem like he's bloating." I was like, "He's bloating, get him on the table right now." I was like freaking out. Like, he needs to be immediately. And they were like, "Well, the surgeon's gonna come in a couple hours." I'm like, "A couple hours, he could be dead." I was freaking
yeah.
out. And anyway, so he was fine because I got him in so quickly. And they were like,
Yeah.
"He is actually bloating." I'm like, "I know that. Get him in."
Ah,
They
yeah.
finally confirmed. Yeah, I was like, "I already knew that. But he just had those early symptoms, and I was able to get him in immediately. And they were able to fix him, and then we tacked his stomach and everything, and he was fine. He lived many more years after that. He died when he was 12, and he was 9 when he bloated, and he did great after that. But it was it wasn't he didn't fit the exact picture of a dog that would bloat. Like, I actually thought that she would have been the bloating dog. She's really nervous, and she never bloated, and she had
Never
a way
bloated.
deeper, like, he was a bigger, heavier guy. Like, he was a big, heavy Great Dane, but she like his bones and everything, and she was more of like a little wispy Great Dane. And she never bloated. No one else I've had, touch wood, have bloated
Yeah.
yet. I hope it doesn't ever happen.
It's
Her mom passed away from bloat. I mean, that these things do happen in the breed, and even on raw. And that's the other thing too, is people think that when they're raw fed, they're not going to bloat. They can still bloat. It can still happen. It's probably less common, I would imagine. It probably reduces the risk for them to bloat, but it can still happen. Anything can
yeah.
happen.
Well, I think it's interesting when going back to talking about fasting, and you commented about how your dogs drop off and not want to eat their morning breakfast. Do you know how many times people the amount of money and time and stress is put on a pet parent that their pet isn't eating their breakfast or isn't eating their dinner?
They're not supposed to.
They
They're not
want
supposed to eat breakfast because they're supposed to go out and hunt. Their natural biorhythms and their hormones, their leptin levels and their ghrelin levels for hunger,
yeah,
regulating appetite, also their ability to metabolize food, their ability to digest food, their pH levels in their body, everything is adapted perfectly for them to go out and hunt and be active first thing in the morning, hunt, basically forage for food, whatever they need to do to go get food, and then they build up an appetite later in the afternoon, and that's when they're hungry. And people go, "Oh yeah, they always want to eat in the afternoon." I'm like, "Yeah, because that's what a dog, that's totally normal
yeah,
for a dog, for them to not eat in the morning once they're mature. I mean, of course, a puppy and a baby, that's a totally different thing, but they'll naturally drop it off, and then they're ready to go to 2 meals or 1 meal, and it's just a natural progression as they mature and develop. And I cannot wait for my next podcast. I hope it's my next one. Is one of our long-term members. He does the gorge and fast method of feeding prey model.
hmm
And he's been doing that for 12 years with his King Corso, who is at 12 years of age. He is so fit as a fiddle. That dog rocks it. He just started breeding him. Like, he didn't even
Wow.
breed before. I mean, he's got, I mean, all of his lab tests, everything that he did, all of his hips and eyes and heart and everything is like perfect. His sperm count was perfect. I mean, everything was amazing, and he just got bred for the first time at
Wow.
12 because he's doing
That's
so
crazy.
super fantastic.
Yeah.
And he's such an ambassador for that style of feeding too. So he feeds gorge and fast method, which is about 3 times a week they get a big meal, as much as he wants to eat, and then he doesn't eat for 2 or 3 days. And that's
That's
just that. And
very
it
typical of the wolf's
totally,
diet.
yeah, and it's worked so well for his dog. I mean, his
Yeah.
dog is what are you doing, Gabby? So it's so good, and that's exactly what I want. People don't even know about that method of feeding, and that for certain dogs, that's where they'll finally have a normal appetite, normal. I mean, everything normalizes for them once they get into that style of feeding. It's just we have to get our ego out of it and our humanness
Yeah.
out of it, and just
Yeah.
realize that we're feeding an animal that has different
Or
needs than we
guilt.
do.
Kasie, I'm going to
Yeah.
stop you for 1 second. I'm going to ask this question from Brian, and then I'm going to go get my
Oh
dog because he got himself stuck.
yeah. Oh.
Brian wants to know, what are your thoughts on feeding once a day versus twice, and are there any changes to fasting when it's only one meal? I'm going to
Oh.
let you answer that, and then I'm
Sure.
going to go help my dog.
Okay, yeah, she's like, "Help me, help me." So, or he, I'm not sure. And so some of the question I think I already answered in what I was just talking about. And so what I do personally is I don't have for many, many years I would have like Sunday would be the fasting day. And so they would have so they would actually only get fed they would get fed 2 meals a day. These dogs that I've been talking about before, they get fed 2 meals a day, midday and evening, or morning and evening, based on my work schedule. And that was more. It was more based on my work schedule than it was on anything else. And if they didn't have an interest in food in the morning, if I put it down and they didn't want to eat, I just picked it up and it was going to be dinner. Like, I don't wait. I don't wait around to see if they are you going to eat it or not eat it. It was like, do you want breakfast this morning? Okay, you don't. That's fine. We'll just eat it tonight. So that's how I usually handle it. And they'll just let you know. And then so if you have 7 days in the week, it was 5 days of those types of food. And then it was one day a week they would get just a big bone, like a giant piece of something, like goat. They got 30 pounds of goat, and 30 pounds of pork necks. So as pork necks or goat would usually work really great for them. Just a nice big thing to work on that was about this amount of quantity that they would consume in a day of their other foods, but it was just a big bone. And then one day a week they would get no food at all. And so we would do, like, what I like to do is do like a big exercise day, so that usually when they come home they're just crashed out and they don't even care whether they're getting fed or not. And then it's more now, what I usually do is I don't have it that like regimented as far as days of the week and 5 days of this and one day that and one. Now what I do is I do a more of a variable schedule, and it's based on what's defrosted, what I have available. It's like, I don't have something defrosted. Oh well, they're just gonna fast tonight. We're good. And it's that's super fine. That, I mean,
Yeah.
they're not. I mean, they're my animals are pretty used to having a pretty variable schedule, and so they're not like, it's dinner time, I need it immediately right now. Or if they did, I might be like, well, we're not going to do that. We're going to do, like, it depends. Like, you can bring them for a walk to distract them. You can pretend like you don't understand what they're trying to communicate. You're like, oh, did you want to play, or you want to get groomed, or you want to snuggle, or I always tell people, just think of it as like a miscommunication. They're trying to tell you they want to eat, and you're like, I don't know. If you're trying to implement a fast and they're not used to it, that can sometimes help. But there's benefits and risks. I'm just going to go to a different topic. I hope I didn't answer. So can you ask Brandon, I'm answering the question, okay? So you can do, and on the days where they don't eat anything at all, you can be more active that day, and then that will help them be able to they're usually so exhausted from like a big long day of hiking, or spent the whole day at the beach, or you guys went and did some activity where it was like a lot of mental stimulation. They did a big training day, or went out and did like a whole bunch of socializing. You went shopping, and you went to the coffee shop, and you did all kinds of cool things together, and drives. They're usually going to be like pretty tired from all that, and so they'll just sleep through dinner, and it's no big deal.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hope
I
that sort of helps explain like the way, and you just have to figure out what works for you, and like for me now, it's just, oh, I didn't defrost something, or I don't have it, or we're just
yeah.
gonna fast tonight because of that, or I'm too
Once
late.
the
I got home
dogs
too
get
late.
once the
That's
dogs get used to it, it's not,
it's
Brian. It's not
nothing.
it. It's
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 nothing.
it's more emotional for you than it is for them. And
Totally.
I have always told my clients, my dogs do not know what time feeding time is. My
No.
dad's dogs have so much anxiety because my
That's the
dad,
problem is you
he
create
feeds them.
this.
They created it.
Yeah,
He
it
feeds his
does.
dogs at 4 o'clock every single day. He's
And the thing
retired.
about that is it's not just behavior, it's actually physiological. Because
Yeah,
what happens is their body's so attuned to that schedule biologically and metabolically that they'll start to have like a ramping up in their pH. They'll start having digestive problems because you
sure,
are creating this really regimented digestion schedule. Now that's useful for a puppy if you're trying to housebreak them and
sure,
teach them potty training.
sure.
That is something that's very useful because you can help them learn because you have this more
You know what time they're
regular
going to go to the
schedule
bathroom.
about the potties, and it helps with all of
Right.
that. But once they're adults, a little more variety really makes a difference because
Absolutely.
I guarantee you there is no place on the planet where a wild animal is getting fed like a mouse drops from the sky.
The rabbits come by at
Yeah,
4 o'clock.
right. That's not how it works. It will actually be like a period of time, like dawn and dusk when there's hunting,
Sure.
or, there's going to be like,
Yeah.
definitely there's like a period of time when they're going to eat, but you want that window to be fairly a little bit flexible and a little bit open and to have some flexibility there. And also,
Yeah.
you don't want to establish this sort of behaviors where they're going to have anxiety around their meal
Over what
times.
time to eat, over mealtime.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
that's creating, it's almost like creating separation anxiety, which I did with my first Great Dane. I could not stand leaving him, and I would make such a big freaking ordeal when I would leave. I'd be like, I'm so sorry, I can't. It was like I couldn't even handle leaving him. And then when I come back, it was like all kinds of like loving it. And I created this poor dog with like the minute I would leave, he would just
Yeah.
howl and cry for,
Oh.
20 minutes. He fortunately wasn't terrible with the separation anxiety. And with my behavior change, I was able to like pretty much extinguish it right away. But,
Yeah.
I was creating, and you can create that same sort of behavior patterns and anxiety that becomes metabolic. Actually, it's in their body, it becomes a metabolic. It's not just behavioral. It's actually changes in their body with their pH and their microbiome. Those kind of things are sort of tuned into those metabolic changes of the schedule of when they're eating and consuming food and breaking down food. And it does like align with their biorhythms, which are just innate, and it has to do with the sun and the moon and the earth and their genetics and their species, origin of their species. That's actually a bigger, deeper thing that you can't just like really undo. It just exists. But yeah,
Brian has 5 dogs, and they're big dogs.
yeah, cool,
You're gonna
Brian,
you're
yay,
gonna
I love
I
the big
know.
dogs.
You're gonna have so much time on your hands, Brian. You're not gonna know what to do with yourself if you're not feeding like he does a raw diet. So
Yeah.
he's got to prepare all this and do all of this every morning and every night. Wait till you only have to do it once a night.
Oh, go to once a day, Brian. Your life will be so much easier. And implement some regular fasting and give yourself a break. Just
Yeah.
go for
Give
a
them a
walk.
break.
I mean, the thing that's really cool is that opens up time for you to do different things with your dog. And every dog,
Yeah.
I always say, what does your dog value besides food? What's the other thing that they value the
Oh,
most? Maybe they love a squeaky toy. Maybe you want to teach them a new trick. Maybe you want to go for a walk. Maybe you just want to snuggle on the couch and watch a show together. Whatever the thing that they enjoy doing. Some dogs really love like a spa treatment, like a little grooming, or, just spend more time bonding with them that's not associated with the food and whatever that might
you'd be
be.
surprised at how many dogs would prefer those other things over. I know for a fact right now I could put a bowl of food and a tennis ball in front of my dog, and she will go for that tennis ball.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I just took her. She just went down to, there's a new wellness center here in Orange
Yeah, I
County
saw
that just
your
opened.
video. That looked cool.
Yeah, that was
Yeah.
Nevada swimming, and I didn't think she was going to do it, but I
She did
know
great.
that she loves those toys. Like
It's a huge.
she'll run in front of a bus if she was chasing
Uh-oh.
a ball.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I thought there was a really good chance that if we just threw the ball in the water that she would do it, and of course she did. So yeah, I'm really excited about this place because we don't have anything really like this in Orange County, and it's so needed. It's so absolutely needed. I'm actually going to work there one day a week. So
That's
I'm gonna.
awesome. That's
The girl
great.
was funny. She thought it was funny. She's like, "You want to work here?" And I said, "Yeah, I want to not be the boss for one day and still get to play with dogs. Like, how great is that? Like,
Yeah.
now I'm gonna go. I love to be in the water. I love dogs, and I
Oh,
just one day of not being the boss is going to
so
be great.
nice. Yeah, that'd
I'm
be
really
so
excited
cool,
about it.
Carrie. Yeah, there's a place called the Rex Center, REX Center here,
Hmm.
and it's really cool. It's awesome.
Yeah,
It's really
yeah,
great. And there's a
that's
vet there that we love that practices out of there. A
yeah,
well-adjusted pet, Alana Struble. Shout out to Alana. She's great. And
yeah.
she has I think there's a big wait list to see her, but it is a great, and actually, I don't know, I think I've talked about this before, but one of our early members, they were the people who opened it and built it, and that was one of our drop off locations outside of the city for a while. And now there's new owners, not new, I think they've owned it for 10 years, but yeah, yeah, but since the original owners don't, they
Right.
sold it to other people. And yeah, it's really cool, and it's right above the ocean, which is really neat. So
Oh
it's
wow.
kind of a cool
Yeah,
location, in Pacifica, overlooking the ocean. And then it's a cool facility. It's really neat. They have all these water, I mean, I haven't been there in years, so I don't know what they exactly have right now, but I know that it's a great, water therapy place is the main thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
It is. It really can't. I mean, we have so many overweight dogs, and that I mean, this. I told her they only have one pool, and they have I think 5 treatment rooms, and they do acupuncture, and
Yeah.
they're working with 3 vets, and they're
Cool.
doing all of that kind of stuff. They have an underwater treadmill, and they just opened it. The 2 girls are. They're actually I'm going to do a podcast with them because we're going to talk a lot about it. But
That's
they
awesome.
just love animals, and they apparently had some money, so they
Yeah.
it cost some money to open this place,
It is very expensive.
and they
Yeah.
did it. And I said, that's scarier than what I did because I had a lot of background in working with animals. They neither one of them did, but they
Yeah,
brought in
that was basically the exact same scenario with these guys.
that's
They
scary.
were they had great jobs and money to spend,
Yeah,
and that
yeah,
it
and they
was
did
it
it.
was and it's the legacy still there. I mean, they don't even live here anymore, and it
Really.
was really cool what they did. Yeah, it was amazing.
Well,
And
I
still,
love that these girls recognized also that they didn't have the background. So I've seen some
yeah.
people just leave corporate and go, I love dogs, so I'm going to open up a doggy daycare and I'm going
Yeah,
to do this and I'm
that's
going to do that.
happened. I know, and that's a
Yeah, and then they
disaster.
just hire a
Yeah.
bunch of young kids to run it. Well, these girls were like, no, no, we don't know everything about dogs. We're not veterinarians. We're not vet techs. We don't have any experience. So they hired in the experience.
That's great.
So
Well, there
instead of,
also used to be a cool place here called Soul Companion. It was in the East Bay, and it was so awesome. It was really amazing. And they had a vet on site like one day a week,
yeah,
but they got shut down by the veterinary board because they didn't have a vet on site at all times, which was
uh,
it was so sad because they were actually licensed water therapists. I mean, they were amazing. It was
yeah,
so great. It was an amazing place. It was such
yeah.
a tragedy over some,
It's just
non-issue
people worried.
really,
They're worried
but
about competition and all that kind of stuff. So
maybe, I'm not
yeah,
sure.
I
But
don't know. I
do
don't
they
know.
have a vet there all the time? Is that, I'm not sure what the
Nope.
requirements are now. I mean, that was a long time ago, but
So I don't know if I know that they rent the pool out. So I
yeah.
don't know if when the vets aren't on staff, maybe what they're doing is like you can swim in the pool because
Yeah,
I'm renting out the facility
cool.
um, for a client appreciation party that I'm going to be doing. So I asked her if
Oh,
I could rent the whole place out. We're going to have a
yeah.
giant doggy pool party,
Oh, that's
and
fun.
that's not medical at all. So why would
No,
you
that's
need
a
to have a
party.
vet
Yeah,
there?
that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or
So
you
I
wouldn't
don't
need it.
think that I think if they're doing that when the vets aren't
I
there,
should
they
do
should
that
be
at my
fine.
mom's house. I grew up with a pool, and I was actually a little swim teacher for a summer, and I got lifeguard certified and everything. But I grew up in a pool because we have a pool in the backyard. We
Yours, your
just
mom have a
always
big
swim.
pool?
It's a good size. It's not like, it's a good normal size pool.
Yeah.
But yeah, that would be really fun. It would be fun to have the dogs in there. We should have a
When
little
I
party there.
retire, hopefully I'll have won the lottery. But in my big dreams, when I retire and win the lottery, I just want to open this giant, beautiful park that's all fenced in and has lakes and rivers, and people can just come, and it's like a beautiful dog park that they just,
Yeah.
you know. So that's my dream. And then I'll just sit on a park bench and
Watch
play with
everyone.
dogs.
That-
I'll just
I
play with dogs.
I love watching dogs play. It's one of my favorite.
I know.
Playing and eating are the two things I can watch all day long.
I
Did I
know, right?
answer Brian's question
Yes.
adequately?
So Brian
Okay.
says, yes, you answered it. So a long
Okay.
walk in the morning and then one meal in the evening is a good plan.
Totally.
Good plan. Totally a good
Go
plan.
have a great hike. Go have a good time.
Yeah.
And they'll have
Yeah.
a
Look at
nice
instead of spending all that time preparing food for them, now you get to go,
get in
for a
nature.
nice little. go for a nice little walk with your dogs, that kind of thing. Um, so I think we could probably wrap this evening up. It's
Yeah.
coming up close to time. So I think we covered some 4th of July stuff, which is great.
So
Bloat.
what's your favorite besides fasting? Do you have any other things that you like to recommend for 4th
Well,
of
of
July?
course, I don't want your dog to have anxiety. So hopefully, if we can prevent the anxiety, then we won't have the diarrhea. CBD can work, but it's hard. I mean, you're talking about a very, very intense anxiety. So I think the problem with CBD is a lot of times people wait till like, an
The day
hour
of?
before the
Yeah.
fire, or yeah, the day of, an
No.
hour before, and
And they
and then
can
they,
have a opposite effect, honestly, too. There's
yeah,
certain animals that
yeah,
have they get more energy
yeah.
instead of calming
It
down.
depends on the severity. I can tell you that when I had the boarding facility down in the Costa Mesa area with our big dogs,
Oh,
you're going to laugh at this story. So this boarding facility was on a street with 14 other boarding facilities.
oh my goodness.
And they were
Wow.
run differently than the way I ran mine.
Of
And
course, no one
so,
runs it the way you do, Carrie. That's why
well,
you're awesome.
I don't want to call them out on anything. They just ran it differently than I did. And so there was a lot of barking dogs on that street all
Oh,
the time. If you drove down that street, it sounded like a war zone of barking, 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 barking.
oh,
So
yeah.
the first year that I moved
I
in
always
here,
tell people that's an indication that it's not an ideal boarding.
yeah. So, but then when you would get in my facility, there none of what
Yeah,
it's
it's
that didn't
quiet.
happen there.
Right.
But so the first 4th of July that I was there, it was like noon, I think, on the 4th of July. And I said to one of the kennel attendants, the street is awfully quiet. What is going on? That's how quiet it was. It was eerie quiet. And then all of a sudden I said, they are drugging all these dogs for the 4th of July. That's
Oh
the only
no.
thing that could be, is that all these dogs got drugged. Well, I had to put my foot in my mouth, I got to tell you, because that night was one of the most horrific nights I had ever witnessed dogs go through. It was so
Oh,
loud and so horrible that you could not relax these dogs. You couldn't hold them. You couldn't put the music up high enough. You couldn't There was nothing we could do. And we had one German shepherd that two of us had to hold him in the corner, because if we didn't, he was going to. And now it was too late for us to do any. I had no idea
it's
how
too
loud
late.
it
Yeah.
was. Too late. There was nothing we were going to be able to do.
No.
So I got to tell you, the very next year, I told every single client, you have to get something from your veterinarian. I'll never watch a dog go through that. And I don't want to drug dogs, but sometimes if you have an animal who's going to hurt himself and you have no other alternatives, I absolutely support
It's so
doing
sad.
what we got to do, so they don't. I mean, they'll go through play, and then they get out, and then they get hit by cars, and it's not worth it. So I support anything that will work, that will keep your pet safe for that night or the
Yeah.
2 nights or whatever you need to do. But
Yeah.
I think that if you do CBD, I just saw this thing, and it's a headphone that apparently goes over your dog's ears and just
That's
keeps
a
the
good
music.
idea.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know if a dog will leave it on.
Right.
I haven't found the thunder jackets to work, but
Really? See, I found that the thunder shirts, or even just doing like a tight wrap or a tight shirt on the dog,
yeah,
does seem to help take the edge off for most
yeah,
dogs. And then I do rescue remedy anyway. That's like my first thing I always
yeah,
do. And you
yeah.
can give that every 5 minutes, which is great. And then I make something called chill out oil, which I haven't made in years. And I was going to do it this year, but I didn't get it together. But, and that's something that you want to do well in advance, that you established behaviors of calm and a routine associated with the scent. And it's both a blend of essential oils, and I do a blend of flower essences associated with it.
Yeah.
So, and that's something that you would be able to use with dogs, not cats. And then there's also some promising research that's been done with sheep milk and sheep milk. So we have like sheep milk yogurt, sheep milk cream, sheep milk butter right now, and sheep milk kefir actually, and all of those, they have a higher amount of magnesium and also B12, so it's like calming and joyful. So it
Hmm.
helps the dog feel a little better. And I don't, I'm not going to say that's going to cure everything, but it definitely is one of the things, a tool in your toolbox that you could use. I like
Sure.
also the adaptogenic herbs. So, astragalus, things like that, those can be really beneficial to help with the cortisol levels. And, instead of drugging them or like really knocking them out, it's nice.
Right.
Some people, though, use Benadryl. And if that works, that's a pretty
It's
safe
worked.
drug.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a lot of side effects compared to other things.
Yeah,
I
it's
like
kind of
it
one of
better
those
than
things.
like I don't know what there's other things that people use that I don't like so much. But um and then the music, honestly, sound
Yeah,
therapy
it
is
does help.
huge. When I
I
was a
will
kid,
start.
that's what I would put all the
Yeah.
animals upstairs in my mom and dad's bedroom, close everything up, and I would turn on Leonard Bernstein's, like some like classical music with like a lot
Yeah.
of booming
Yep.
percussion in the background, kind of like almost Fourth of July-ish
They
type.
actually sell a CD
Yeah, you can
that
get
that
all.
that it plays
Yeah,
fireworks, and so
yeah.
if you start that in the morning on a
Well,
low,
if you start that
eh,
with puppies and you get it going, then you have a dog like Groovy who doesn't even care. Like she doesn't
well,
even
that's what I
care.
mean. But well,
Yeah.
yeah, if you start them with puppies, but
Yeah. Yeah.
if you start that music with your dog, that Fourth of July at a low rate, and then increase it throughout the day, by the time the fireworks come, they've been listening to it all day long, and they're like, whatever.
Yeah. As long as they're not
So
super already tuned into it and they're ready to freak out. I don't want to
yeah,
start the anxiety early, but yeah, it depends. But there's a lot of different tools people can use that will help.
yeah,
But getting
yeah,
out of
and
town, getting out of town, that's
that's your
actually
full
not a
proof.
bad idea. That's not a bad
That's your
idea.
full. I mean, if you really, you don't want to drug your dog, and you can get out of town, and you can go somewhere where it's quiet.
Yeah.
I know I'm a boarding facility, but you need to call if you're going to board your dog for 4th of July, first and foremost, let me tell you that boarding dogs on the 4th of July besides Christmas, 4th of July is the most packed boarding facilities
Oh,
will be.
really? Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because
Oh
people
my
don't want to
gosh.
deal with their dog? Is that what's going
Probably,
on?
but here's the problem with it is a lot of
That's
times
sad.
people are trying to get them away from the 4th of July anxiety, and they feel like they're safer there, especially if they're having people coming and going and the
Well,
dogs
and they
don't
probably
can in.
are, especially at your place.
But the problem is boarding facilities are very prone to taking too many dogs for that weekend.
Right. And
So
then
the idea that you're
then you have this group of anxious animals that's going to
exactly
feed each other, feed off
exactly.
each other.
So if you're going to board your dog for the 4th of July, first off, if you call a boarding facility right now, today on July 1st, and they have availability, they're
Don't.
just taking everybody. They're taking everybody, so you're
And
already in the bed.
it's not a good place
They
probably.
should be booked.
A good place to
4th
be
of July
booked.
should be booked. We were booked weeks ago, weeks ago.
Yeah. Someone who has a
So
good reputation and
well, you
yeah.
want to call when you call the boarding facility for next 4th of July, so to speak. You want to make sure that they can't hear the fireworks there, and that they have a night shift, because I can
Oh
guarantee
yeah,
you a
you
lot of
can't. Oh, those poor dogs.
yeah,
Oh,
and
some
then
are
they just
strange. They're not even with their
yep,
people. Oh my gosh.
strange. There's so much
That's so
anxiety that
sad.
night. No night shift.
Oh.
I'm actually doing a podcast. I'm going to be on a podcast on Monday, and we're talking about the dangers of, I hate to say it, but the dangers of boarding facilities, and
Oh,
these kind of
you need
things.
to say it.
I'm
Carrie, you
going
need
to
to
say
talk
it.
about it. Yeah,
I'm going to talk about it.
there's
And that's
dogs who
one of them.
are
Yeah,
there's a lot of problems
I know.
in the
I know.
industry and you have to
I
be
know.
careful. So, and
Well,
that's true with any professional
well,
service,
it is.
honestly.
But as
Yeah.
far as 4th of July, if you're checking into boarding facilities on the 4th of July, um, make sure that they can't hear the fireworks there. And you please do not leave your dog anywhere that doesn't have a night shift. Please do not do that. You shouldn't do that any time of the year, but particularly on the 4th of July, because one firework will set off. And if there's 150 dogs in that facility and one gets anxiety, even if your dog doesn't have the anxiety from
They're
the
going to get anxiety
fireworks,
from the other
that is
dogs
going to
freaking
freak
out.
them out.
Yeah.
Why is this dog going crazy? So
Yeah.
yeah, it's a scary time.
Because they
It's a
do look
scary
to
time.
you too. I mean, if a
Yeah.
firework goes off, a lot of times your dog will look at you and go, "Should we be worried about this?" And then I usually go, "No, this is fun. It's like a
Yeah.
party." Like make it
Yeah.
like a fun, happy. And
Yeah.
I'm usually very calm with the dogs, but when fireworks happen, I'm like, "Woohoo!" Like I make it like a
It's
real, we're
okay.
having fun and kind of move the body and get the chi going. But just this is fun times. We're having this is
Mhm.
listen to that crazy sound. Wow, it's so fun. Like I try to make it like kind of turn it, and they're like, oh, okay, we're not worried. We don't need to be worried. We're all happy. This is boom time. It's fun time. And I just try and turn it over so that their perception of it, they're looking
Yeah,
to you for what if you're like, oh my gosh, the fireworks, they're gonna be like, oh my gosh, the fireworks, yes, we're all gonna die. So you don't want to
for
be
sure.
like setting the
Yeah,
tone. You want them to feel, I find that like making it a fun thing, like really, and I'm usually the calm mom. So I'm not the one, like Bronco's the more the playful guy. And I'm usually more calm, and like we do Zen stuff with mom, but meditative walks and things like that. But I try to ramp it up when there's fireworks, just to make it just because they have this tension, and you have to release the tension somehow. So whoa, we're having fun. That really
yeah,
helps, like a little dance party, or
yeah.
throw a ball, or have something fun happen. So associated with every boom, it's a fun time. It's a little, like, I mean, almost like an explosion of confetti of fun. So I try and think about it for them, and give their impression. It'd be a little, and of course, if you have a dog with like deep-seated anxiety, that is not going to work. But I mean, if you have a dog who's their first time with it, or first experiences, or a puppy, that's
Yeah,
a good
that'll
way to
work.
turn it. Yeah, you want
Start
to
it.
you
Yeah,
want to start it off that way. Yeah.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
that's a good place to start or stop,
yeah.
isn't it,
Stop. Yeah, I think
Carrie?
we
Yeah.
gave you guys some pretty good information as far as fireworks. Perfect timing. I should have thought about that at the beginning of this, but I think we covered a lot of stuff. And covering the 4th of July was super important. I'm glad that we got that
Yeah.
out there. So,
Yeah.
and if your dog has diarrhea, I just can't end without this. If your dog has diarrhea on July 5th and July 6th, and everything
Just give them
else,
a minute. They don't need to necessarily
please
go to the vet.
don't go to the vet and get metronidazole unless there's other symptoms,
Right, right.
like
Learn your
severe.
vitals. Learn
Yeah,
your dog's vital signs. And if they're
yeah.
stable, but they have diarrhea, they'll get through it in a day or so. It's no big deal. They'll be okay.
Yeah.
Diarrhea happens to every single being.
Being.
It's part of being
All right,
alive.
guys, we're gonna sign off up here. Kasie, it's always such a pleasure talking to you. I look
It
forward to our
is.
Thursdays. I'm like, oh, it's Thursday.
Yeah.
I gotta this. So I just did a podcast with the veterinarian, and the whole thing was on anxiety. So it's kind of
Oh, yeah.
went right into it. So
Nice.
anyway, I just think it's great. If you guys are listening to this, please share this. Kasie and I are trying to get, obviously, trying to get more of a following so we can help more pet parents. We've agreed to both come on here every Thursday night at 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. So we're always here, and please just ask away. This is free advice from two pretty darn well educated pet
We
people.
have a lot of experience to share.
A lot of
Lot
experience.
of many, many, many years, and many,
Yeah.
many, many animals.
And we're willing to give it. That's the thing.
Yeah,
So.
free.
All right, I'm gonna sign off.
All right.
All
Thanks,
right, have a
Carrie.
good night.
Thanks,
Have a safe
everybody.
4th, everybody.
Yeah, everyone stay
Bye.
safe and healthy. Thanks.
Yep.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.